Lyft Shared Rides are officially going away. I'm on Fortune.com right now. As you can see, you'll no longer be able to take a carpool ride with Lyft to save money. Lyft is officially discontinuing shared rides, the latest change to the ride-hailing company's new chief executive officer, or CEO, is making a bid to revamp the platform to compete with Uber. As I've mentioned before, in a lot of other videos, they did get a new CEO, David Risher, and he's been doing a lot of things, unique and very interesting, some good, some bad, depending on how you look at it, to try to combat Uber, as Lyft has not been doing well, and Uber's been doing very well. And as he says here, I know he mentioned in a previous article I reviewed that he wants to go back to the basics, what do drivers want, what do passengers want, and as he says right here, the problem with shared trips is that they take people out of their way. We all know that. Whether you take one or you're driving, at some point, you have to pay attention to what your customers want. There is only a little bit more to the article where they compare UberX Share or Uber Pool with Lyft and all this kind of stuff. But basically, that's the Spark Notes, that Lyft is now getting rid of shared rides. And I'd be curious to see, what do you think? Because I'm going to be honest, I do feel a bit mixed about this. Because on one end, from a driver's perspective, nobody likes driving for Lyft Shared Rides or Uber Pool, UberX Share, basically any carpooling situation. Like the CEO mentioned, you have to wait a while to get dropped off. It's this weird situation where you get in the car, like say you're passenger A, you then pick up passenger B, then let's say sometimes you pick up passenger C, drop off passenger B, drop off passenger C, pick up another passenger D, and you're like, wait, I was the first one to get in here, and I've seen 3 new people, and I'm still waiting to get dropped off. And for you as the driver, you're the one that gets blamed for this, right? So of course, from a driver's perspective, I think this is a good idea. Of course, no driver likes doing pooled rides. I also feel like you make way less money. You probably get worse ratings as well, probably less tips as well. Even if people know what they're getting into, you still get blamed. I remember talking to one driver who said that a lady was late for her flight, or she may have missed her flight, tough to say exactly what happens, because she took an Uber Pool to the airport, which why would you do that? And she goes, whatever, I just want to save money, I have time. And then one thing led to another, as you can imagine, they started dropping off other people, and she goes, okay, are we gonna get to the airport soon? And the driver was telling me that he said to her, like, look, you ordered an Uber Pool, I don't have any control of who I drop off first or anything. I just follow the app, I follow the algorithm. This is out of my control. And who knows, maybe she did miss her flight, but of course, she chose to do it. She knew what she was getting into, yet for the driver, it's still somehow your fault, right? So I think from a driver's perspective, this is good. On the other end though, I am curious because I think it's always important to look at both sides. There are a lot of advantages for a lot of people taking a shared ride. I think a lot of people like the idea that you can save money, you carpool with people. You can question, maybe argue that it's better for the environment, tough to say. I feel like a subject for a whole other video, but it could be potentially better for the environment. But basically you're spending less money, so it's a cheaper ride, but it takes you a little bit longer to get there, sometimes a lot longer, but typically I'd say not too much longer, and you have to have other people in the car with you. And I think for a lot of passengers, shared rides are a great opportunity to get from point A to point B with some other points in the way and save money while doing so. And so this is, I think, a very curious thing for me is, will this affect Lyft? Is this something people are actually going to be happy about? Now, what's interesting is a huge curveball with this whole mix of should you have shared rides or not? Is it a good idea that Lyft is getting shared rides in order to combat Uber? Which I do feel like is kind of a unique move, but we'll see what happens in the future, of course. One huge curveball is a pandemic, right? And I've said this before, for a lot of people, I think even now, and it could be some residual effect of the pandemic, maybe it's just, how people view things now differently after what happened with COVID-19 and everything. And that is, do people even feel comfortable getting into shared rides anymore? Like, I still know a lot of people who maybe don't feel as comfortable when it comes to germs and being around certain people in certain social situations. And I feel like now things are back to normal. I'm pretty sure, knock on wood, the pandemic is over, right? But even still, I feel like for a lot of people, the idea of taking a shared ride before was completely normal, completely fine, right? Now, though, I still feel like there might be still some remnants of that odd social anxiety or slight anxiety where you're like, oh, should I really get in the car with a stranger? I don't know. Like, I don't know them. Are they, obviously no one's wearing masks anymore and stuff like that. So there's all these questions. And I feel like after the pandemic, shared rides heavily fell off. If the pandemic didn't happen, I think shared rides would continue to get more and more popular. I've mentioned this before that I remember when taking Uber Pool, UberX Share, they changed their name. But when taking formerly Uber Pool, I remember, it could be like, say, a $28 or $30 ride, but with Uber Pool, it's only $12 or $14. So it's almost sometimes a 50% discount. And if you look at UberX Share now, in my opinion, it's not really that good. I can't remember how it works exactly. They've changed it a little bit here and there, but it's something like you save 5% off initially. So I've seen some times I'm like, okay, I can either take an Uber or an UberX Share, and I save like 20 cents with the UberX Share or whatever. And I'm like, for 20 cents, I'll just take an Uber. And there's one time I took one. I took an UberX Share. Someone else got in the car, and I think I got like $2 in Uber credit back to me. So it was this weird situation where up front, I saved 5%, but getting a bonus because I had someone else in my car was only determined if someone else actually gets in the car, which I will say does make some logical sense because, like I said, back in the day, it was crazy how cheaper Uber Pool was, and even Express Pool. They don't do that anymore. I don't think that's ever going to come back. In case you don't remember what Express Pool was, it kind of treated Uber like almost like a bus system. So you'd order an Express Pool, and it would tell you, hey, walk to this intersection. Usually only a couple-minute walk. It wasn't super, super long, and we'll pick you up. That way, the driver doesn't have to take all these circuitous routes. They could just go on, like, say, the main road, pick you up, and then keep going. And then when you get dropped off, same idea. They drop you off maybe a block or two from your house. That's a lot more efficient. So you can save a ton of money with Express Pool. They got rid of that. I think there was a lot of issues with that, as you can imagine. But even still now, when it comes to Uber Pool, now being UberX Share, I mean, in my opinion, it's not as good as it used to be, right? And like I said, it used to be so cheap. Now it's like for 5% off, and then potentially to get $2 in Lyft cash back. In terms of not Lyft, excuse me, Uber cash back or Uber credit, I don't think it's worth it at all. So when you compare, like, say, UberX Share versus Lyft Share, I mean, it seemed like the shared rides just aren't really that good of an option at all anymore, right? And I know the CEO did talk about, of course, when it comes to Lyft Shared Rides, that when it comes to passengers, they don't want to be waiting a ton to get dropped off at their destination. I kind of disagree now, and I think that when it comes to Lyft specifically, right, I find with Uber, and I know Lyft has been kind of toying with this, but with Uber, you can turn off UberX Shared Rides, which is awesome. I remember when driving for Lyft, you couldn't. You could be thrown into a Lyft Shared Ride. It was called, was it Lyft Line, I think, back in the day, with no warning. And now you're like, great, I have to do the shared ride. With Uber, you kind of have an option to toggle it on or off. With Lyft, you didn't. So I feel like this actually favors drivers more than passengers. Because I feel like for passengers, and this is just, like I said, part of the gamble you have to do as a passenger. If, like, say, you're going to an event, you're going to a bar, you're going out, you're going to a friend's place, whatever, and you want to save, like, say, $5 or $10, depending on how much the discount is, with Lyft Line or Lyft Shared, you do kind of have to understand, like, yeah, I know right away that I'm just going to save $5 or $10, but the catch is it's probably going to take a little bit longer to get there. And I think for a lot of passengers, for a lot of people, even now, even given the pandemic curveball, I still think for a lot of people, especially with the way the economy is going, they might prefer that, and they might actually miss that. So it is an interesting move. I am going to be honest, because I feel like this favors drivers more than passengers. Not saying that's a bad thing, because of course you want to make everybody happy, but it is a very, very bold move, because I can see a lot of people saying, hey, Lyft is more popular in my area, or Lyft is typically cheaper in my area than Uber, and it depends on where you live. And I use Lyft Shared Rides. I don't mind waiting a little bit longer because I get to save money, because the money is very tight right now, the economy and everything. And now I can't take Lyft Shared Rides anymore, which might make some people, obviously there's going to be a pros and cons to this, like any kind of bold move like this. I can see some people being like, you know what? I'm not going to use Lyft anymore. I'm going to use Uber because the Lyft Shared Rides were significantly cheaper. I didn't mind waiting a little longer because I saved money, but now I can't do that. I'm now going to move to Uber and maybe try to do their shared rides or whatever. Obviously, I'm just speculating here, but let me know what you think in the comments. I feel like this is a very unique move. They've been making a lot of moves as well, especially the CEO. Like I said, one, trying to go back to the basics about what the drivers want, what the passengers want. Two, laying off over 1,000 people, 3 requiring workers now to come, back to actually the office and they can't work from home. And then 4, now the big move, removing Lyft Shared Rides. Like I said, I do think this favors drivers more and passengers less, because I still think there are a lot of passengers who maybe will prefer that. And again, it's kind of a double-edged sword where, yeah, you're saving money, or not double-edged sword, but kind of a catch-22 where, yes, you're saving money, but it's going to take you a little bit longer to get there. And I can see some passengers actually being disappointed by this, because now they have to spend more money. And even though you get there quicker, I think some people would have rather saved the money and been in the car longer. But let me know what you think in the comments. But at this point now, Lyft Shared Ride is officially gone, and the battle between Uber and Lyft continues to heat up. And it seems like, I got to give him credit, right out of the gate, the CEO is immediately making tons of moves, and the battle heats up. And I'm hoping that maybe with this move and some definitely future moves he's going to make, because he's definitely not going to stop here with what he's doing, I can see Lyft growing a lot with this trajectory that he's going. Hopefully things go well with them. The battle with Uber and Lyft, it rages on.